Hey, so let's talk about drawing. When we think about art, our most basic understanding of it is the act of drawing. So Merriam-Webster defines drawing as the art or technique of representing an object, outlining a figure, plan, or sketch by means of lines. When we get to the elements and principles, that will make a little bit more sense in terms of the use of line. But I think just as a regular old person, you can conceptualize a line, drawing, stick figures, that sort of thing, right? So that's the basis. It's more elaborate than that, of course. So drawings can be a lot of different things, and they can serve a lot of different purposes. For example, this is a Da Vinci sketchbook. And these can be done as what's called a study. So it's like a practice drawing where Da Vinci's books are filled with these. And they're rehearsals, right? They're practices for how he's going to be able to draw muscles and bones and facial expressions and the layers of tissue in the human body. Because he was really, really emphasizing the reality of the bone structure and the way bodies are built. So that was sort of his project. And all of these, of course, are from Da Vinci's notebooks. The next is, but he is just an example of what kinds of drawings different artists can make. So studies, notes, practice, and what we call preparatory drawings. Painters and other artists, sculptors, mosaics makers, fashion designers, everybody frequently uses a drawing technique to sketch out elements for the final product. So if you're painting a large picture, you want to sketch out the placement of the different figures, how large versus how small, how much space is certain things going to take up, how much do you want to emphasize the background or where the lighting is coming from. And you can do these in a thumbnail, like a smaller sketch, just to sort of hash out the spacing, the lighting. And sometimes these are really cool. So a lot of Da Vinci's preparatory drawings are really elegant and beautiful works of art in and among themselves. They don't need to be, you don't even need the painting. The sketches are really, really cool because Da Vinci was awesome that way. But yeah, it allows you to kind of hash out possibilities before committing to a very time-consuming and labor-intensive process. As a clothing designer, I sketch a lot. I look at placement of waistband, the volume, sleeve types, and just sort of like sketch through different ideas because sometimes I see a thing in my head and then I want to see it in front of my eyeballs because that's a different method of understanding the material. You can think of something in your head, but sometimes when you sketch it out, you go, oh, no, that doesn't look as good than it did in my head. And not like in a skills issue, like I don't draw as well as I can imagine, but I really thought that sleeve type would look better with that bodice type sort of situation. When you see it in front of you, it makes a big, big difference. So if you're somebody who's struggling with that, yeah, try sketching. Preparatory drawings are great. They are not a waste of time. People sometimes think they are, but no, it's always good to utilize your hands, your eyes, your brains, and the more work you're doing in that way is always benefiting you as an artist. Also, plans. So technical drawings, plans, instructions. Of course, this is Da Vinci's water screw that takes the water up the hill. So anytime you've had, I don't know, IKEA directions, Lego instructions, these sorts of things are illustrated. There's only so much explanation you can get or give somebody when you really want them to know how something needs to get put together. Illustrations can really bridge that gap. So drawings can be illustrations. Tells you what parts go where. how they work, how they're supposed to fit together. And this is the same for architectural plans, layouts for parks, or if you're planning your garden in your backyard, laying out a grid and sketching in where the tomatoes are going versus the cucumbers versus the garlic and the potatoes. How much room do you need to walk between them? Do you need, a place to put irrigation? These sorts of things. How far from the faucet is this? These are things that, again, get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper, and suddenly you can look at it from the outside. And you can also show people, and they can collaborate with you or help you out. My daughter's great at reading Lego schematics, where my dyslexia gets me bogged down in where does this piece go? Do I gotta rotate it? She's really, really good at helping me out with that. So, but again, it's more helpful than trying to explain, okay, take this rectangular piece and put it like 16 dots in and 4 dots up and line it up with this other piece. Like, that takes a lot of verbiage, where you can just show a picture of it and then, you're good to go. And of course, finished works. Most of the time when we're looking at art, we're looking at a drawing, and it has the idea that it's some kind of background thing or preparatory thing. It's not a finished product. But there are lots of drawings that are just drawn to be drawings. If you have any art that's done in graphite, that is a fancy way to say it's on pencil, and it's just a drawing. And some of these are great. They are made to be enjoyed on their own terms. And that's lovely. They're just enjoyed as is. If you were a kid and you're doing, drawings at school in your art class, those are drawings. In my previous video, I showed a bunch of my daughter's drawings, and the one of her mermaid was made to be a finished product that she hung on her wall. It is a drawing, and that's great. A drawing is a thing that's not a painting or a sculpture, so it doesn't have to be just a sketch or a thumbnail or preparatory or practice. It can be a finished product. So while we usually think of drawing as done by a point, a pencil or a pen, you can also draw with a brush. And I know that starts to get things really fuzzy because you paint with brushes. And what's the line between painting and drawing? Well, that's the great thing about art. So if you live in Asia, you probably write with a brush. And calligraphy is done with brush. And that is technically drawing. Well, it's writing, but writing is a kind of drawing. You're drawing the shapes of the letters. You're using the same muscles, the same impetus to create shapes with a single point. So writing is a form of drawing. I would posit that, and I stand behind that. So if you are writing with a brush, you're basically drawing with a brush. And you can also make art with a brush. And it is also painting while being also drawing. So it really depends who you ask. Art is not a bunch of set rules. I always think of it as the floor has shapes drawn on it, and you can pile everything up into the center of that shape, that circle, that box. But there's no walls to keep those things inside that box. They're going to roll out. They're going to mingle with their fellows on the edges. So you end up with things that are both one thing and another thing simultaneously, and those are both good definitions for those things. And that's where brush drawing tends to fall. It's both drawing, but it's also technically painting, but it's both, and that's fine. Art does not need to have really rigid separations between things to divide them. It just needs a larger understanding of how things can be two things at the same time. So drawings, we think of pencil and paper, but they can be done using any kind of implement on any kind of surface. For example, drawing in the fog on a window, my kid's favorite thing to do in the car. I also love to do it because I am also just a big kid. Salt trays are super great. So you put salt down, and this one in this picture was just like a cookie sheet, but if you could put construction paper or contact paper or something in a box, and then when you scrape through it, you are looking at the colors underneath, and that's fun for kids too. And drawings don't need to be permanent. I also think that the lines must be permanent, but they're not. They don't need to be. The salt is going to shake and then erase what you did, and that's okay. Chalk drawings, all right, on the sidewalk, super great. Again, drawing, it's definitely drawing. The rain will wash that away, or you can wash it off with a hose. And drawing in the sand, again, not permanent whatsoever, but still drawing. So the permanent nature of a drawing is not what makes it a drawing. It is, are you making lines? If yes, then drawing. And apparently, of course, we've all drawn and written things in dirty vehicles, but like in China right now, it is like a thing to draw these very intricate designs on the dusty, dirty cars. So if you're looking for like a wholesome trait, Google China dirty car drawing, and it's a blast. I picked one because this dude was so smiling and proud of himself. There's a lot of them. Some of them are so elaborate. So elaborate, I thought it would be really hard to see the level of detail on a screen, like on the video this small, especially if you're looking at it on your phone. So I picked one that would be, you can see exactly what it is. But I think that's really neat. It's a trend, and it's fun. It's harmless. Just writing in the dust. Writing in dust makes a great medium for drawing. So drawing is a very diverse thing. It's hard to say, hey, this specific thing is drawing, this specific thing is not. Kind of know it when you see it. But anything that you are making marks with that are a line doesn't have to be permanent. It doesn't have to use ink. You can write smiley faces or hearts in the fog on a window. It's very diverse and kind of hard to define, but so is, writing is also kind of a form of drawing. So there's a lot of things that fall under that drawing umbrella. But generally understood is an action to create lines. And even if those lines don't look like anything. So doodles, I love doodles. My doodles tend to look like stuff. I like to draw specific things, vines and very intricate flowers and stars and things like that. But other people love to just sort of zone out and draw kind of like nonsense things, and that's super great. It's all drawing, and it also, doodling engages your brain in ways that note-taking doesn't. It's really, really cool. I love when my students doodle in class, and it seems like they're not paying attention, and a lot of teachers get upset about it, but usually when they're doodling, they are occupying sort of the chatterbox part of their brain. They're occupying the twitchy, stimming part that needs action, while allowing their listening element to really come online and be at the forefront, since all these other sort of busy work parts of their brains are engaged with the doodling. And the doodling is usually kind of mindless and silly. And then they're able to be listening more actively. And it's great. I had a student that doodled a whole class long, really great, sometimes really cool pieces of art, like finished artworks, but also was a straight A student because his brain was engaged with the drawing of that chattery part, and he was able to really listen with his deeper part of his brain and retain the information better. So drawing is good for your brain. No matter how you're drawing, with your finger on a screen, with your pen or pencil on a paper, in the dust, in the fog, chalk on your driveway, it's all good, and it's good for you. Also, so what you're drawing with, we kind of went over, what you're drawing on. The surface and the textures of the surface really, really will change the outcome of your piece. For example, smooth surfaces, you can have much finer lines and finer details. The more textured your surface, the more gaps there are going to be where the point of your item is not making contact with the surface, with the paper, with the driveway. So a smooth, fresh asphalt driveway versus a pebblier, like aggregate driveway. Those are going to have very different outcomes in how that chalk is going to adhere and how it is going to, like, the pigments are going to lay down on that surface. So, for example, we have V. Hess Kelmans, and she draws a lot of stuff on toned paper. So the color of the paper. So this is white on a dark paper. And you can tone the paper yourself. You can, color in the background and then put a layer on top of it. This is a spider web. Or you can get paper that is already tinted. In this one, this is Seurat, and this is L'Echo. You can see the grain and the texture of the paper. It's a thick, textured paper. You can see the grain moving through the picture, the drawing, and it really gives it a blurry, dreamy quality that is not very crisp, right? It's kind of fuzzy in the edges, and the blurriness is part of the appeal. Also, this paper is toned. It's not white, bleached white paper. It has like a golden tan undertone, and that gives it more of like a flesh tone to the figure that's drawn on it. And that can be something an artist might want to do. So in the case of the spider web, spider webs are light colored. So if you want to draw a spider web with a regular pencil on a paper, it's going to be inverted, right? The paper is light and the web is dark. But in reality, spider webbing is sort of a light gray, whitish color. So if you want to have an accurate representation of spider web, then you need a dark background to put that white drawing onto with crayon or white pencil. And then my friend Melissa loves to work on toned paper, and she has an entire collection of wildlife drawing done with pencil and what's called Conte crayon. It's a compressed crayon. And she utilizes, this one has a pink tone. She's got a golden tone like Seurat uses. She has some that are blue, kind of gray, depending on the mood. And with the swan, it contrasts the whiteness of the swan, so she can use, again, that white crayon to go in. And also it gives it a mood. It gives it a late afternoon, golden hour, nearing sunset sort of vibe. It has a warmth to it that would be very different if she did it on like a blue or a green toned paper. That would give it a very different angle to interpret it. And she loves working on toned paper because you can utilize, instead of thinking about using colors and darker medium, which we usually think of when we're drawing, right? We're thinking of using pens or pencils, and those are a saturated tone on top of a white substrate because paper is usually white. But reversing that and giving a colorful background, and then you're forced to really think about the highlights and the lighter colors and build that in. And the gaps between where you have the colors are automatically going to be different. They're going to be deeper. The shadows are going to be a little deeper because you have that underlying color present already. So color, texture of the background, what that surface being drawn on, how that interacts. Does it pull in the ink? Does the crayon stay on the surface? How absorbent, how nubbly? Does it have ridges? Is it very, very powder smooth? Depending on what kind of artist you are, you might have your preferences. Some people like working with glossy paper. Some people hate working with glossy paper. It's very challenging. So, there's more to it than just what implement are you using? What is the paper? What is the structure you're drawing onto? What is that like? Drawing is just one of those things where it is the most basic thing you can do. You're taking something, you're taking a pencil, you're taking a pen, you're taking your finger, and you are making marks. And you can do something as simple as a stick figure or something as elaborate as Kurt Wenner, who takes chalk, and instead of just simple chalk drawings, he creates these three-dimensional illusions, grand and beautiful, to the point where he gets commissioned. This one was by Absolute Vodka in Hollywood in 1996. he gets commissioned by brands to create these stunning masterpieces that are really nothing but some chalk, a lot of time, and the right visual perspective. But at the end of the day, it's all just drawing. So it is a basic sort of small thing that can achieve great art at the end. So there you go, the basics of drawing. If you enjoyed this, you can find another video on this channel that was number 1 about art. You can go to my Patreon and you can sign up for to collect the whole set, or if you want to watch them on your own time, not on YouTube, that's good too. So Patreon will be linked in the description if you want to get involved there. We have Q&A and chit-chats about all the fun stuff we're learning. And if you have specific questions and want better definitions on stuff, I'd be happy to do that for you. So hit me up there or leave a comment here. Thanks. See you next time.